Yep. So this question is from Dino. They ask, what is the most important aspect of Typesense's user experience? Would you like to share one thing with your project's followers about the updates planned for the coming year? So I would say the key thing that we focus on for Typesense's user experience, and we like to call it developer experience, is ease of use and how intuitive things are. So compared to other solutions for search in the market, the last thing that we want to do is for people to have to learn yet another DSL to be able to just use Typesense. Instead, I think what developers are more used to these days is you make an API call to a service and it does its thing and it gets you the results back in a format that's familiar to you, so JSON. So that's what we focus on in Typesense. Is if you're looking at a parameter, for example, in an API call, we hope that everything makes intuitive sense, that you don't actually have to even read the documentation to understand what the parameter does, and hopefully you don't even have to use as many parameters besides the basic ones, because that's something that we do with every single parameter we add. Is we first of all evaluate if a parameter is even needed to be able to configure this particular behavior, and we spend an elaborate amount of time discussing that. And then if we say okay, there might be a need for this, then we make sure that it has a very good sane default set, so that it just works out of the box without any configuration for majority of use cases, and is still there available for people who might want to tweak that particular parameter. So, and that takes a lot of time. It's not as, we finally refine all of that into what is, what shows up as Typesense today. But there have been times where, we've discussed for days, and actually there's this one particular feature I think we've been discussing for months now on whether we should do it or should not do it, and it's still discussions ongoing. So that's the level of detail that we put into before we say this is something that's going to simplify and improve the experience. So I would say that's one big thing that we focus on, and that's not just for during integration time, but it's also deploying to production and scaling the service. So we want to make sure that the same Typesense binary that you run locally can also scale out of the box without doing any other configuration in production as well. As long as you give it enough RAM and CPU, we want it to work out of the box in production as well, so that you don't have as much operational overhead. So that's another thing that we focus on as well. Now, in terms of what's coming next, I would say we typically look at our roadmap in terms of the next few months. I would say 2 to 3 months at the max, because we tend to prioritize a lot based on user feedback, and anything that we say is going to come in a year out from now is probably, is highly likely to change, because as users are using the product and giving us feedback and asking for different features, we tend to prioritize those over any grand plans we might have, because the last thing we might have this big idea of a thing, but if that doesn't end up actually meeting users' needs today, then it's just it's not going to be too productive. So which is why we tend to prioritize based on what users are asking us right here and now, of course, as long as it fits in the overall vision of the direction of the product that we're taking it in. So along those lines, the key things that we're working on right now are improvements to performance around updates, mainly. It seems like people are using us for a lot of real-time updates, and we're trying to optimize performance around that. And then we're also working on some, what I like to call edge cases that people run into in terms of feature sets. The basic implementation is there, but then people need these little extra features. In a case in point, just today, we launched GeoSearch recently, and someone asked, can you find overlapping areas to see if there are any common geo areas in a given set of records. And whereas we currently have a feature where, given a lat and long, you can find all the records that are close to that particular lat long. Now they're starting to ask about geo areas, which is the next evolution of the feature. So things like this that are evolutions of features that we already have. As more and more users are starting to use the engine, we're getting all these interesting features. So that's, those are things that we will be prioritizing as well. And then, of course, in the other thing that gets us excited is if someone is using Typesense in a totally unique, interesting, like we've never thought about that Typesense can be used in this particular type of use case, then that's something that gets us excited, and we try to engage with the user, ask questions to see if that's something that's easy enough to pull off, or if we need to, maybe put it for later, and that's what shapes our long-term roadmap.